Keith Ellison. He is the
Brother Tom.
Congressman. It's great having you with us.
You bet it, man.
Ellison.house.gov is your website. At Keith Ellison, of course, is the Twitter account. And you said you are happy to take phone calls. We'll get some of those for you in just a minute. And you're with us for the half hour, right?
Well, I could probably hang out later than that. I know I have to probably around. I can go till about 1:40.
Oh, that's great. Okay, well, just let me know. We've got a hard break at the bottom of the hour from 1:28 until 1:33, where that is dedicated. Local stations go to local news and advertisements and things. But other than that, we can work around pretty much anything. So, what's on your mind? What's going on in Congress? What's going on in the Democratic Party that you want to tell people about?
Well, the first thing I want to mention, everybody, is that look, with all of the horror around the hurricanes, Harvey, Irma, and the fires out west, and then the DACA fail and an attack that Trump just launched. Don't forget about Charlottesville. Don't forget about what he did to transgender soldiers, and don't forget about with Arpaio. All these things are still there, and certainly don't forget about the Emoluments Clause violation. Don't forget that he's, the nepotism. All these things are still ongoing, and it has occurred to me, Tom, that the flood of scandal and attack and insult and outrage is just coming so furiously that people forget about the last horrible thing that he did, and so if he does anything slightly less horrible, then all of a sudden we're thinking, oh, he's getting better. He's not getting better. Everything he does is designed to promote a certain philosophy which says that poor people have too much, rich people have too little, and that you have to be a certain racial, religious kind of identity in order to be okay in his mind. And America only can accommodate certain people and not everyone. And he does not accept the idea of liberty and justice for all. So that's the thing on my mind first, that we should not let ourselves get stuck home by Trump simply because he has said he's willing to revisit DACA in 6 months. None of that. No, this is the same guy we've always seen, and we should add up his attacks and not forget about them. Mm-hmm. So that's that. DACA is certainly a front center thing in my mind, and it strikes me too, Tom, that when you think about DACA, 800,000 people, here these are people who grew up here. This is their country. They are Americans. They may not have the paperwork they need, but they are Americans in every way it needs to be one. They contribute to our society, make it better every single day. And I just, think that it's important for us to consider what it means to be an undocumented person in the United States. First of all, nobody comes to be in the United States just because, why not? Leave your home, your family, your language, your culture to come up here to be what? Discriminated against? No, people do it because in my opinion, our U.S. policies around trade and other things to contribute to people's need to leave. Employers up here want to attract undocumented labor so that they can pay them less and they can have fewer rights. And when you think about the undocumented people, these are folks who pay into Social Security, but they don't get it. They pay if they pay rent, they pay property taxes, but they often are excluded from many of the public service benefits that go along with it. These folks, and then they have to live in fear. And so I think it's important to understand that, an undocumented worker is probably a highly exploited worker. And so it is in the interest of all working people to give everyone a status. That way we can make sure that there's real justice for everybody. And that's kind of what you asked me, what's in my brain?
Yeah.
There's a lot more, but that's enough for now.
That's pretty solid stuff. One other thing before we pick up phone calls, I heard that you have a podcast, like everybody's doing it. We started a podcast a couple weeks ago. We call it the Hartmann Report. It's kind of best of this show. It's free. It's over on iTunes. Tell me about your podcast.
Well, my podcast is called We the Podcast. We've been going for like 2 years now, and the reason that we did it, Tom, is because I looked on regular network news, and you don't find economic news about regular people. When you ever find a TV broadcast show talking about, in the mainstream, talking about payday lending, talking about the diaper need, talking about the need to increase the minimum wage to $15, or talking about, even franchisees and how they often get mistreated by the franchisor, and talking about monopoly and how market concentration is really hurting this economy. So basically, We the Podcast is all about how people outside the billionaire class experience this economy.
That is,
and you can go on iTunes and check us out. We the Podcast.
That's great. And that's, you're a young whippersnapper here, but I'm an old fart. And I remember, and maybe you're old enough to remember, I don't know, but I grew up in Lansing, Michigan. There were two statewide newspapers in Michigan, the Detroit Free Press and the Detroit News. And one, and I forget which was which, but one was the labor paper and the other was the business paper. One had a business section, the other had a labor section. And, my dad worked in a tool and die shop, was very active with the union. We'd get the paper that had the labor section, and literally every day there was 5, 6, 8 pages of labor news. I think it's been basically since the 80s, since the Reagan era, that newspapers have dumped all these labor pages, probably because they destroyed all the unions. But I think it's just super that you're filling that need, as it were, with a podcast.
Well, yeah, and so we like to talk about, the Nissan strike, the organizing drive here. We want people to know that, people, it's kind of a old saw now that, the labor movement is shrinking. No, let me tell you, man, there's a lot of fight in the labor movement, man. They're swinging every day. And so, we talk about what's going on. We had Lee Saunders on, of the American Federation of State, County, Municipal Employees on. That's the podcast. It's the most recent one. And we talked about a lot of things. We talked about how it was AFSCME that stood behind the sanitation workers in 1968 when Martin Luther King marching with them was shot down and killed. But it was AFSCME. And I think a lot of people need to remember that, when Martin Luther King gave his great speech, the I Have a Dream speech, it was the UAW and other unions that helped bankroll that march. And it was unions that were there when we lost him. But, they won the strike anyway. And, Martin Luther King was prophetic on the importance of labor and unions and the dignity of work.